Guys, hope you're doing well. This is Lewis here, and in this video I wanted to do more of like an educational video really, so don't expect fancy animations and all that stuff. This is going to be a little bit more scientific with regards to HTMA and copper supplementation, and when to give copper, when not to give copper, what happens in certain mineral patterns when people have copper, and loads of other different things. So if you are interested in this sort of stuff, you'll probably gain a lot of information from it. Yeah, hopefully I'm going to go through it in a step-by-step process, and you should understand a lot more about how we utilize copper in healing programs. So the first thing I want to say about copper is probably one of the most amazing minerals in the body. When copper is properly utilized and properly available, which basically means that copper is, it's available in the blood, it's bound properly to various proteins. Basically, the body has proper access to it. Amazing things happen. More energy, skin improvements, a nice balancing of the way that you think, high processing power. Women don't have any menstrual issues. Generally people don't have headaches if they might have had headaches before. The list literally goes on and on and on. But one of the problems that people can get, and it's very, very common in my opinion, is something called hidden copper toxicity. This is where copper will build up in the body, in the liver, in the brain, in the kidneys, and it might not show up on HTMA tests. However, there are many indicators we can look at that gives us indicators that someone's got hidden copper. And when people have got this hidden toxic copper, usually they kind of get the opposite of all of the benefits that copper, when it's available, gives them. So, they end up getting, extreme headaches, and migraines is one of them. When copper's balanced, then migraines tend to go away. Generally, women get menstrual issues, and women, fertility problems, because copper has a lot to do in women's reproduction. And when it's out of balance, women generally tend to get problems in them areas. Copper is needed to be available in the skin, for healthy skin production. So people generally get eczema, for example. They can get ligament pains because copper is very much related to tendons and ligaments. People can get sort of psoriasis, acne, and all these clear up when copper is balanced. Now, there seems to be a bit of a movement at the moment where people are being told to take high doses of copper. And although in certain situations that is going to make people feel really, really good at times, generally because when copper's available in the bloodstream, it's going to do a lot of things. It's a very powerful antifungal, for example, and anti-parasites and anti-mold. So any sort of fungal infections and maybe things like thrush, any candida in the stomach, any fungal skin problems, dandruff, that sort of stuff can sort of miraculously go away. When copper is available in the blood, people have higher energy, their skin improves, the skin becomes really nice, aches go away, joint pain goes away, copper can also help in various other ways to stimulate things like stem cell production, and various other mechanisms that go to heal the body from from infection fighting, to cardiovascular health. There's an array of different things copper does. Now, one of the issues, and I think sometimes you can see it in the hair analysis world, is that copper can be used as a scare tactic if people don't really understand it. In my opinion, hidden copper toxicity can cause an array of different problems, because it's not available. But a lot of practitioners and there's websites out there that basically say copper's this big problem, and don't take copper, and this, that, and the other. So hopefully I'm going to try and help people understand a little bit more about copper. I don't profess to be the absolute expert on it, but working with hair analysis for 11 years now, and working with hundreds and hundreds of clients, you begin to form a good picture of how copper is related to people, and how copper makes you feel when it's balanced. And there's no denying that when you get balanced copper, you do feel fantastic. Now, one of the things that's a movement that's going off at the moment, like I said before, is this idea of taking a lot of copper, and in my opinion, that's not a wise move to make. Interestingly enough, by speaking to some people that have been taking high copper, they will experience things like panic attacks. They will experience things like racing mind, nausea, nausea and sickness. Insomnia is a big one, and a floaty, ungrounded feeling. And this is really actually well known, in my opinion, in the world that I'm in. And hopefully I'm going to explain some of the reasons why copper can make you feel like that, and how you can basically balance out the minerals and take copper at certain times and specific times when something like a mineral test can show you with data when is the best time to take copper or not. So the first thing we're going to look at is a fairly common mineral chart. We would call this a slow oxidizer chart, and basically people who are in slow oxidation generally have hidden copper toxicity. Now, there is a big argument out there that we are systemically low in copper, and therefore hidden copper toxicity is fraudulent or fake. And if you scroll down on this report, you will actually find we have 23 copper toxicity indicators. Ignore this calculation here because I am editing this graph on the fly. So some of the calculations are going to be wrong, but you can see this particular test has all of these hidden copper toxicity indicators. Now, one of the reasons why I believe hidden copper toxicity is a real thing is because people will come to me with an array of symptoms that I personally believe are due to hidden copper. And usually they are much of the things that I've just talked about, insomnia, headaches, premenstrual problems, skin issues, racing mind, joint issues, joint pain, slow wound healing, easily bruised, gum bleeding. Even things like Tourette's is linked to schizophrenia, certain forms of schizophrenia. A lot of things are related to hidden copper toxicity, because it's not available, it's not toxic. Now, some people will argue people need extra copper, but what happens when you basically balance out the minerals properly, which I will try and discuss further on, because you'll understand there are times to give people copper who have got them symptoms, and there aren't times to give people copper when they've got those symptoms. Copper isn't some big bad thing that we should stay away from, but I think people need to understand how to properly utilize it. But yeah, basically what happens is when you're on a protocol, when you're on a mineral balancing protocol, for example, what will generally happen is after a while, and granted, sometimes it can take a while, but I am going to explain a new process that I've recently discovered that I personally think speeds the whole thing up by 100 times, and plugs a lot of holes in many things. But generally what happens is you'll get a big increase in copper. So the copper can rise up to 6.5, milligrams percent. It can even go above that, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've seen it at 20 milligrams percent. And what's interesting is when this copper shoots up like that, we call that a copper dump, people's symptoms will generally increase. So they can get heightened anxiety, heightened headaches, heightened insomnia, so there's a link there. There's a link between hidden copper, the theory of hidden copper, which has been proved really. I mean, if you take tissue biopsies of livers, etc., of people in these positions, you will find that it's generally high in copper. But the copper rises, everyone experiences all the symptoms that they had, but heightened. And then when that copper comes back down into balance, the symptoms that they had previously will generally go away or decrease dramatically, and a person feels much better, in my opinion, because the hidden toxic copper is now balanced within the body, and the body can now utilize it, and all of these issues related to hidden copper goes away. Now, my argument is, well, if we are systemically low in copper and we don't have these hidden copper toxicity indicators, why is it that when you put people on a mineral balancing program which doesn't use high doses of copper, the copper level will go up? One, where does that copper come from? If that happens, well, it does 100% does happen, because I see it on a daily basis, and many other practitioners see it on a daily basis. And secondly, how come it's correlated, interestingly, with, panic attacks, for example, is very much related to copper toxicity. When the copper rises on a hair test, people can get panic attacks. And we do have protocols in place, very powerful protocols in place, to help people when they've got high copper, by taking things that help lower copper, things like inositol, things like choline, which will bind to copper in the bloodstream, things like vitamin B6, molybdenum, etc., to stop people from having a bad experience when they dump that copper. And this is one of the reasons, in my opinion, why people have all of these reactions when they take high doses of copper, because I see it every single day. When people are copper toxic, they have things like panic attacks, anxiety, nausea, insomnia, sickness, etc., because they've got toxic copper. The copper levels rise on a hair analysis test. All them symptoms increase because that excess biounavailable copper is now biounavailable in the bloodstream. So all of the issues become much worse, and we have protocols in place to deal with that when it happens. And then when the copper comes down, the copper that was toxic in the liver or in the brain or in the kidneys is in a much more balanced state, and people's issues that they had previously, symptoms related to hidden copper toxicity, will diminish. They might have to go through a couple more small dumps to fully overcome the balancing, but after a while it does happen. And again, it used to take a long time. I do believe it's been sped up, and I fully understandable how people can go off and branch off and think that something's going wrong. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about some of the metabolic patterns. People's metabolic rate is so important when it comes to understanding how to give people copper and when people need copper, and why people need copper. When I was talking about hidden copper toxicity, not everyone has got hidden copper toxicity. Some people have got a fairly balanced activated copper already, available copper already, and they don't need really they don't need, well, they do need some copper, because we all need copper, but there's no need for these really high doses of copper. You just need to understand what mineral patterns people are in, and you need to understand probably why sometimes high copper is gonna feel really good for certain people in certain mineral patterns. So this is like a fairly common one. Generally, people that come to people like me are feeling sick, are feeling really burnt out. This is quite a common pattern in women, and this would be called a slow oxidation pattern, a slow metabolizer. So the way that you understand slow metabolizers, if you link the calcium magnesium together as one block, and you link the sodium potassium levels together as one block, If the sodium potassium, I'll just get an annotation tool out here. If the calcium magnesium is above sodium and potassium, like that, so if you drew a line across it, then that is generally classed, that is basically slow oxidation in a nutshell. That is someone who's got slow metabolism. And generally people that have got slow metabolism have hidden copper. Generally, the slower the metabolism, the more hidden copper someone's got. But there's a lot of different hidden copper toxicity indicators on a hair analysis test, like I said, about around 23. So you can go through them, and we'll go through them on this test and count them all up. And you can give people a bit of an idea of how copper toxic they are. It's pretty much impossible to figure out, the copper load of the body. Basically, the only way to do it would be to take a biopsy of every tissue, which is basically impossible. So one of the best ways of doing it is by doing hair tests. And if you read hair tests over a 40-year period, thousands of them, if not millions, there's probably been millions of hair tests done, you'll find over and over and over and over again that when people are in the slow oxidation pattern, and generally they've got a lot of hidden copper toxicity indicators, when they put on a healing program, a nourishing program that heals the adrenal glands, re-nourishes the body, lo and behold, this copper level after a while will shoot up. They'll get an increase in all of the symptoms, and then it'll decrease, and they'll heal that issue, permanently. So this particular individual is, and another thing as well, I wanted to sort of highlight is that a lot of people have a lot of problems. A good example is adrenal burnout. This whole idea of taking copper, even though it makes you feel good, ain't going to solve the adrenal burnout problem. If you've got someone who's running around from 9 to 5 and eating a terrible diet, yes, they might be able to take copper and feel good, dependent on the mineral patterns, in my opinion, but that's not going to solve these deep-rooted issues. A lot of people have liver congestion, for example. Again, it's not going to solve liver congestion. Liver congestion is going to take quite a long time. You're going to need a lot of detox protocols, various specific things for the liver. The same if someone's got kidney stress, for example. So this whole idea, and I know I'm simplifying a little, I'm pretty sure it's a little bit more complex than that, but just giving high copper willy-nilly without looking at something like this is, in my opinion, pretty irresponsible, especially when you know what that high dose copper can and does to people. It's not very difficult to see if you're a hair analysis into hair analysis, and someone comes to you and says, I'm getting panic attacks, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting the other, and you say to them, are you taking copper? And then you look at a test and the test similar to this, which it usually is, then you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put two and two together and realize that when you collate with tens, if not hundreds of practitioners, they see this issue, time and time again. So understanding copper at a deep level and when to give it and at the right dosages, in my opinion, is vital for people to overcome, the copper balancing issue. So we're just going to look at this hair analysis test as an example. So this person, as I say, is a slow oxidizer. They've got a high calcium magnesium to sodium potassium. Now, this particular individual has a lot of hidden copper toxicity indicators. So if you go down here, you can read, they've got one indicator here, which is a slow oxidizer pattern, another indicator, which is a calcium level above 70, another one that's a magnesium level above 10, potassium level less than 4, zinc level less than 13, copper level less than 1.5, high mercury, a slow oxidation with a copper level less than 1, a calcium potassium ratio greater than 10 to 1, a calcium shell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this person's quite toxic, in our opinion, with copper. Now, another thing is this person has got what we call a high NAK. I appreciate it's a little bit difficult to see. It's probably easier from the ratios. But if you look at this current ratio, which is 3, it's higher than the ideal ratio of 2.5. Now, basically, when someone's got the NAK ratio is really linked up with emotional health. Copper has a lot to do with emotions too, and that's why many people can really feel good when they take copper. However, when the sodium level is higher than potassium, and you look in terms of ratios, this individual does not need to take copper. One of the reasons being, there's two reasons being. The first reason is they're already suffering from hidden copper toxicity indicators. And usually, I can guarantee you, if you saw a hair analysis pattern like this, I can guarantee you that you will get symptoms. They will say that they have symptoms of panic attacks, insomnia, anxiety, PMS, acne, racing mind. It happens every single day. It is so common. So this individual, we would say, as at this moment, hidden copper toxicity, right? So if you was to give them copper, high levels of copper, because they're already toxic in it, that will just heighten all of those nasty symptoms that they've already got. Another issue is that when sodium is above potassium, we actually, and they take copper, they will actually increase this sodium level further. So we call it high NAK when sodium's higher than potassium. When that happens, the NAK ratio goes up, and you can start feeling even more nauseous, even more sick, even more floaty, and it's basically a terrible thing to do to someone, to give copper in these particular mineral patterns. What these individuals actually need is some zinc, which will lower the copper, lower the NAK ratio. It'll bring them back down to earth, make them feel, much more at ease, much better, and they'll come back down to earth. Now, there's a caveat to this, and this is one of the reasons why you've got to be an expert in hair mineral analysis and understanding all of this, because it is complex. You can't just look at a hair analysis test and think that you understand copper. If you used to look at this hair analysis test and see copper at 0.7, you're basically going to think that, oh my God, I'm super low in copper and I need to take copper to raise that level. It's complete nonsense. You're not low in copper. You are actually, copper toxic. And the reason why we are so confident that you're copper toxic is when you do go on a healing program, you will 100% at some point, if people stick to it, this copper will jump up, all of the symptoms will increase because the copper excess from the liver and from the cells are now into the bloodstream, and you get heightened symptoms of copper toxicity because copper's just too high in the body. And when that copper comes down, you generally get permanent healing of them initial symptoms, and you can go on with your life. Now, another interesting caveat, and again, this is what I mean, you got to understand all of this, is that although someone can have hidden copper toxicity, that doesn't mean they've got high blood copper. That doesn't mean that they've got a lot of copper running through the blood. One of the ways that we can see this is by looking at this NAK ratio. So if I, for example, just edited this ratio, let's have, for example, let's put sodium up to 20. So you can see things a little easier. I'm not going to do this too often. It's going to take too much time to update things. But if I move the sodium level up a little bit like this is what we call a high NAK ratio, a high sodium to potassium ratio. This is indicative of someone that actually does have a decent amount of copper in the blood, which would make sense, because the NAK ratio, and I'm simplifying it quite a lot, but it is very much to do with emotional well-being. It has a lot to do with a lot of other things, but at the moment, I just want to talk about the emotional well-being of a NAK ratio. If the NAK ratio is is aligned, so the NAK ratio is 2.5, that is indicative of someone that's got a nice healthy copper level inside of the blood. It doesn't mean that they've not got copper toxicity, but generally, if you've got copper toxicity and you have an NAK ratio of 2.5, you can speak to people and ask them, do you have an emotional well-being? And, you know, well, probably 100% of the time, 95% of the time, they're going to say, yes, I do. Sometimes they're not, because they've got other issues like mercury toxicity or arsenic toxicity, this, that, and the other. But in general, their emotional state, and usually it can even override all of the other crappy stuff that they're feeling. It's quite amazing. They say, well, I'm not feeling great because this, that, and the other, but emotionally, I do feel balanced. And the reason being is that the NAK ratio is balanced and the copper level in the bloodstream is nicely balanced. Now, when the NAK ratio is high, this is usually indicative of too much copper in the blood and too little zinc in the blood. So generally, when this starts to happen and the NAK ratio is high, you will start to feel floaty, you start to get insomnia, start to get like a wired feeling. If you was to give someone copper in this pattern, that would not be a good idea. This sodium level is going to go up. The potassium level will probably go up too, which is another issue, because especially if the calcium magnesium level's down here, because then you start getting into fast oxidation, which brings its own problems, which we will talk about. But yeah, basically taking copper in this situation, pushing this up, you're going to get problems. You're going to get severe insomnia. You're going to get nauseated feeling, detached feeling. So what you need to do in this particular instance is just stop taking any extra copper, take some zinc. This will bring this person down back into reality. They'll start sleeping better. They'll start feeling way better. And then you can consider adding a little bit more copper into their programs. Now let's have a look at the opposite of I'm not going to update it. I think everyone can understand. So let's just say, for example, we have a potassium level up here at 14 and a sodium level down here at 20. This basically is indicative of what we call a low NAK ratio. This is usually when copper is too low in the bloodstream, and people generally will feel pretty rough, not good, emotionally imbalanced, depressed, stuck in a hole, stuck in the past, just really down. It is not a nice feeling at all. If you was to give this person copper, which will help bring up the sodium potassium ratio so it's level, then people will start feeling much, much, much better. And we're talking in a matter of, I don't know why this is not working, in a matter of minutes. 15 minutes, 20 minutes at times, people can feel miraculously better. Now, if you was giving people this high copper program and they've got a low NAK ratio, which, by the way, is most people. This is another thing why it's probably in the beginning you get more praise for it than not praise, because in the beginning a lot of people have a low NAK ratio. Most people that are searching for answers with their health has got a low NAK ratio, and one of the main reasons being is that they've got low blood copper and it makes them feel horrendous. So if you was to give copper to these people, they will probably feel much better really quickly. It's not going to solve everything else. It's not going to solve the calcium shell that they're in. It's not going to solve any adrenal burnout issues. It'll just make them feel good for a while. But if this ends up going up even further like this, then you start getting into insomnia and not feeling good, and that's when it's a good idea to take zinc for a while until this is back into balance. All right, so we've talked about that. So what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about fast oxidation. So fast oxidation, and let's just remove this. So again, sorry about me having to do stuff, but like I said, this is more of an educational video than anything. So if you are interested in this subject, then please keep on watching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the calcium levels right down. So we'll do 15 for calcium. We'll do magnesium at 4. And we'll bring the sodium potassium up. So we'll bring the sodium up to 60. And we'll bring the potassium up to 26. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put someone into a specific pattern just to highlight a problem. So let's just put the sodium to 55. We'll put the potassium up to 30. We'll put the magnesium down to 5. And we'll bring the calcium down to, let's say, 7. We'll update this. So this is quite a worrying pattern, if I'm being completely honest, and it can happen to a certain amount of people, and you've got to be extremely careful in this particular pattern. So this pattern is called a Stepup pattern, and it's basically a pattern that can, if people are in this pattern for long enough, they can often be killed, basically, and I explain the reasons why. So, and this has been, viewed over 40 years, that when people are in this pattern, it's quite a dangerous pattern. They're usually, on the way to a bad situation. We're talking cardiovascular, heart attack problems, strokes, seizures. It's a pretty bad pattern to be in. And, supplementing people copper in this particular situation can be extremely dangerous. And, you 100% need a test to figure out how to administer copper in a pattern like this. So the first thing we can see is this person is what we call a fast oxidizer or a fast metabolizer. If you was listening before, you'll notice that the sodium potassium level compared to the calcium magnesium level. So if we just draw a box like that, a box like that, if you look at them in terms of boxes, this box is bigger than this box. This is indicative of someone in fast oxidation. When you're in fast oxidation, this basically means your metabolism is working faster than sort of normal. So, if you're a slow oxidizer, you're in the slow lane of a motorway and all the cars are running fast and you're very sluggish, very lethargic. If you're a fast oxidizer, you're in the fast lane, everything's sped up. You like the Energizer bunny from the Duracell adverts, if you've seen them, and everything's go, 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 go. Mild slow oxidation, mild fast oxidation is someone in the middle of the highway. Everything's running smooth, everything's running calm, and that's generally the ideal oxidation rate to be in. But when someone's in a fast oxidation rate, generally these people are more, because the metabolism's much quicker. Generally, these people are more angst. They can be prone to panic and panic attacks. They generally are more sort of energetic in general, but that can easily turn to anxiety because the engine of the car is running way too quick. Now, calcium magnesium are our buffering elements in the body. They basically help calm the body down. If you was to take, some calcium magnesium, some good quality calcium magnesium, you will feel fairly quickly a calmness come over you, and it's like having a roof on your sort of house, so to speak. It sort of buffers everything. It puts a lid on things. it calms people down. So if you've got a calcium magnesium that's way low down this, it's a little bit like, having the roof off your car. There's no protective mechanism going off here for the individual. So basically what happens is this person's running around like an headless chicken, probably anxious, borderline panic attack individual. They've got no calcium, low magnesium. Obviously, magnesium is extremely important for heart health, extremely important for various functionings in the body. And you've also got calcium, which basically is a huge supportive mechanism and calming mechanism for the body. So when these two are really low and this is really high, the way to describe it is someone just going down the fast lane of a highway with the foot on the pedal, the roof's coming off the car, and basically they're heading towards a big problem. The increase in the oxidation rate basically burns up minerals. It just burns up minerals, and the minerals that get burnt up are things like calcium, things like magnesium, things like zinc, which is the body's stress minerals. So if you can imagine a car running down the highway, the roof starts coming off. If it doesn't slow down, the roof's coming off, the doors start coming off, everything starts coming off. And this is all these protective minerals that are in effect buffering the body, protecting the body. And as you can imagine, if that keeps on going, that's going to lead to a big problem. Now, interestingly enough, when you are in fast oxidation, you do need a bit of copper. There's no question about it. People do need copper in fast oxidation. And if this person came to me, I would obviously explain to them, probably in different terminology, that they really need to slow down and rest and relax. And I would actually give someone a little bit of copper just to push up this NAK ratio, but I would also give them other minerals. And this is important as well. There's other minerals involved that people need to take to balance out the oxidation rate and the metabolic rate. So inositol and choline, for example, are really important for people in fast oxidation, and telling them to have more oils and fats in the diet, for example, to bring down this oxidation rate. If I was to give people a little bit of copper, and they're on a diet that's maybe quite high in carbs, for example, which pushes up the metabolic rate, although this level could go up, the copper level could go up to a decent level, you're also going to get this increase in the oxidation rate, which is going to blow them out, just blow them out anyway. So that's another reason why just telling people to take high copper without understanding this, in my opinion, is super, super dangerous. If you used to give copper to someone in this particular mineral pattern, fair enough, they might feel better, and that's what everyone is looking for. Oh my God, I'm feeling better. But if you're not helping a person to bring their oxidation rate down and to highly increase their calcium magnesium levels, for example, all you're going to get is an increase in this oxidation rate like this. And this is going to go up here, and you're going to get you're going to get extreme panic attacks, you're going to get extreme nausea, extreme disconnection from reality. And I've seen this happen a few times in people, and it's a very, very, very dangerous situation to be in. And I do know a couple of people who have unfortunately been hospitalized because they was given, this particular person was given copper, which wasn't a bad thing, because we do know that that the NAK level needs to go up, and that's fine. But they was also told to take B complex vitamins, which raises the oxidation rate. We don't really want to be giving people in fast oxidation a lot of B complex vitamins in general, especially without things like inositol and choline, because it will just shoot up that. The main things really is to give people inositol and choline to bring this oxidation rate down, and to tell them to have more oils and fats in the diet. But without any of that extra information, just giving someone copper, for example, without understanding everything else, is pretty dangerous from my experience over the years. So I'm just going to get some notes up that are written down a little bit. So that basically this is just a little snapshot into using copper and how to use it properly and how to use it wisely. Things can get more complex, and that's why obviously you need a practitioner that understands how to work with copper. When copper is used, so let's say for example you gave copper to this individual, but you also brought down the oxidation rate and you improved the calcium magnesium levels, they're going to feel way better. They're going to feel much better. If you gave them copper when their sodium potassium level is up here, when really we should be just be giving zinc. You might be giving people calcium, magnesium. If you're just giving them copper, really, you're probably going to get yourself into situations. Sometimes you've got to look at this from a perspective of what needs dealing with first. The real big thing in this particular pattern is we need to get control of this person, or they're on the way to heart attack territory basically. So the thing that we need to be really focusing on is just lowering this oxidation rate and improving the calcium magnesium. That is like the main thing that we need to try and do. And obviously, there's sub levels in that of like giving people a little bit of copper and giving people advice on slowing down the lifestyle. And I can guarantee you, if you was to say to someone, is your lifestyle fast paced, do you not particularly worry about how you live, guaranteed you they will say yes in this particular hair analysis pattern. So another point on sort of mineral balancing and stuff is that one thing that we're sort of using at the moment, which I'm finding really, really helpful, is the use of a new phototherapy technique by a company called LifeWave. And basically what that does is it's a little patch with an amino acid on it, and our bodies emit infrared light. And this patch will bounce back the infrared light on the body into the skin and increase a copper binding peptide called GHK-Cu. Now, this GHK-Cu basically has a strong affinity to copper, which is also another reason why I think the idea of systemically low copper is incorrect. Because if we went back to the previous graph, where this individual, in our opinion, is suffering tremendously from hidden copper toxicity, when they take this phototherapy patch and their GHK increases, it will bind to copper. So we think that these people have got excess copper, and it's quite easy to see when they go on a program, the copper shoots up. But when you take this copper peptide, it will grab onto this excess copper, make it available in the body, and these people will feel much better very, very rapidly, which is a fantastic way of doing it. Because if you was to give copper orally to this particular individual, they would probably have a bad reaction to it. One of the reasons being is that they've already got high hidden copper, and they've already got a high NAK ratio. The sodium is higher than potassium. So this is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, to give this particular individual copper. I can guarantee that if I did that, they will come back to me, I've got panic attacks, I'm feeling anxious, my mind's racing, I'm not sleeping. And I would say, well, I completely understand the reason why. You need to stop taking it, you need to take zinc, you need to take this. However, if they was to take the GHK-Cu patch, and it binds to that excess copper, they can feel amazing very, very quickly, because that excess copper has now been made available by the body. So we don't have to worry about this situation. We don't have to worry about the slow oxidation, because we're not adding any extra copper into the body. We're just balancing the excess copper that's coming out, that needs to be balanced from certain areas in the body. Now, there is a little caveat with the GHK situation, which is, cell permeability. Some people, especially this individual, probably has low cell permeability, which is very much related to slow oxidation. So whenever you've got weak cell permeability, then getting that peptide and getting that copper out of the system can be a little bit challenging, and balancing it out. So that's when we need to just keep doing the mineral balancing program and work them up slowly until their cell permeability is better and things improve much quicker. But the solution is not to give this individual copper straight away, because the NAK ratio is too high and they've got way too many hidden copper toxicity indicators. If the potassium was high and the sodium was low, then we would give this person some copper and they would probably feel better initially, but that's not going to solve the calcium shell and the adrenal burnout, this is called sympathetic dominance, which is another problem within itself. So we'd have to, explain to people that they need to sort of work on some maybe more mindfulness, and sometimes we need to give people some bioavailable calcium magnesium, which will actually bring this level down, which is another situation. And again, this is why you have to be an expert in reading these things to understand how to actually work with it. So, if you are interested in hair analysis, I have built this app. It's at hairanalysis.report. It tells you everything you need to know from a hair test. You do need to work with a practitioner for them to get you on a proper program, but there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of information that you could read through, all related to mineral balancing. And I did used to work with Dr. Wilson, and I do really respect his old work. I have left him now, because I don't think his new stuff is working for him. But I do work now with other practitioners, quite a lot of them, and quite a lot of well-respected practitioners, building these systems with them, for them to use. So, I'm highly skilled in reading hair analysis tests and understanding when copper is needed and when it's not needed. I could go on for another 2 hours on copper management and copper balancing and how to balance it, but that's probably a completely new video within itself. So one of the things that comes up sometimes is sort of cost. Hair analysis tests, in my opinion, if you look at it from the perspective of, if you understand all the information, it is vital to understand your mineral patterns in order to figure out when to give copper. Do you need copper? And sometimes, copper's not the big important thing that people need to deal with at the moment. If you've got, for example, that Stepup pattern, that is a very, very serious pattern, and that needs to be dealt with straight away. Many practitioners won't even be thinking about copper if someone's in that mineral pattern. That is something that needs to be dealt with straight away, with ongoing work and support to bring that down. That is quite a serious situation. So just randomly giving someone high copper in that particular pattern, it does put people in A&E, because I've seen it happen before. And it's not the copper that's causing it. It's just other things. It's like, if you're in fast oxidation and copper raises the oxidation rate a little bit, it's common sense. The copper's just increased the oxidation rate too much, and in many ways it's the oxidation rate that's putting someone, into A&E, or it's, or it's the fact that they've not got adequate calcium magnesium that's available to push up the calcium magnesium levels, which buffers the sodium potassium and brings everything back into balance again. So in my opinion, I think it's a low cost lab report, and for the information that you can get from it, I can just show you quickly the information that you can garner from my application at hairanalysis.report. This is just the report patterns. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patterns. Lifestyle stress, low NAK ratio. This is when you need copper. You've got a ratio like this, you definitely need copper. If you got a ratio that's high, like this, you definitely don't need copper at the moment, because it's gonna you're already going to be having insomnia and irritability and panic attacks probably in this pattern, or definitely in this pattern. times 5. You don't need copper at the moment. Doesn't mean copper's bad. It just means that at the moment it's just not going to be working. It will not do you very good in general. We've got all the oxidation rates. We've got stages of stress. We've got all sorts of stuff, calcium shells, sodium, which has a lot to do with adrenal glands. I mean, I can talk in another video about how the adrenal glands link to copper toxicity and ceruloplasmin. I can talk about that a lot. Sympathetic dominance. So anyway, you can have a read of this. If you go to my website, you can see all the patterns on there. There's been a lot of work put into it, and that's just the report. And if you was to click on every read more link, you're going to go to another page that's 10, 20 pages long. When it comes to the GHKCU peptide, that works out really if you wear the patch every 4 days. Works out around £40 per month, the same price as a good quality bottle of supplements. So I think for the small extra price, you definitely get a much more thorough representation of how to balance copper and how not to balance copper. And it's not just about copper; it's about so many other things that all needs to be addressed and balanced out. In order to feel good, because that's what we're all aiming for. So I think I've talked about everything, but yeah, just to conclude, one of the reasons why I think that this idea of that we've all got low systemic copper is incorrect is because we see every day patterns like this one, which show a lot of hidden copper toxicity indicators when they put on a program. And let's say they are put on a program, they would not be given any extra copper for this particular individual because their NAK ratio is too high. So there won't be any extra copper given than the copper that's in the diet. And I can guarantee you that after a while, if a person sticks to it, and things are getting way quicker now with the GHKCU, this copper level will basically shoot through the roof. All of their symptoms will increase and then decrease as the copper comes down. And we do have a protocol because people can get panic attacks when the copper's way high. And this is the reason why people get panic attacks when they take copper. But we do have a protocol to help them manage that, and we do get them to have things on hand when a copper dump is likely to happen. So that's why I think this idea of low systemic copper is a load of rubbish. I do believe we have low systemic bioavailable copper. So sorry, let me rephrase that. We have low systemic available copper. We have low systemic available copper. Copper for most people is not properly utilized around the body, but the solution is not to just give people copper, in my experience. And hopefully I've explained some of the reasons why. And this is also, you can match this up. If you go and ask any practitioner that actually understands this, they'll say the same thing. So we know there's hundreds and hundreds of data points linking to the fact that people can get high bioavailable copper. But there's no question about it. When your copper is available and you have available copper, it is one of the best feelings that you'll ever experience. So hope I've covered most things there. I'm sure I've probably missed a few, but thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.